When you look at sort of what's been transpiring with the trade war, or rather what's not been transpiring, I mean, we're starting to get some data. We saw it in the jobs report, in some of the jobs data out of Challenger. We saw it in this Fed study that seemed to suggest that there is a tangible impact from the trade war now on the actual U.S. economy.
Negative impact.
Negative impact,
Yes.
Correct. How negative do you think it could get?
Well, it depends on whether we can see a postponement of the tariffs scheduled for October. But one of the things I think market participants overestimate is Trump's ability to make a deal happen, right? There are various parties in dispute. The Chinese are irked by all accounts. We just heard your correspondent saying Chinese want to see significant progress. And don't forget that with U.S. elections coming up, it may be the perspective in Beijing that waiting to see how long Trump is in office affects their negotiating calculus.
Should we not, though, underestimate the desire for Trump to get a deal ahead of those 2020 elections? Would we get something that maybe isn't really a tangible deal, but is certainly sold as one?
Certainly, and we've seen that movie before, right? And markets have some form on this fact that even a ceasefire is perceived as positive news, as is just the mere announcement of meeting. But it doesn't take away the fact that we haven't, Trump has not made a comprehensive breakthrough. NAFTA hasn't been agreed to either, and the clock is really winding down for Congress to approve anything before elections.
Well, I'm wondering about the flip side. I mean, someone making an argument to me this week that maybe Trump doesn't want a deal before the election. He ran 2016 in part on building a wall between the U.S. and Mexico, playing up fears of a immigrant invasion. Is it possible that he runs the 2020 election on we're in a battle with China, and if a deal would take
Yes, and I'm going to ring serious concessions. I think that fits in much more with what I believe the U.S. objectives are. Again, market participants like a deal because they're watching the S&P. China is named as a strategic competitor in the U.S. national security strategy. I think we should be understanding these tensions as about much more than buying soybeans or IP or sort of short-term objectives. The U.S. wants to slow down China's rise, and that's really what is going on here.
When you look at the interplay, though, with other world leaders, not just Xi Jinping, but the leaders in Europe that are also having to deal with the U.S. and trade policy.
They don't mind
Japan.
the United States doing the heavy lifting on this.
Well, exactly. And so I'm wondering,
kind
though.
of welcome.
Well, and then I'm wondering, though, then how does that factor into the fact that we are headed into a U.S. election? These other nations know that, and how are they going to sort of play either against that or to it to sort of extract what they want out of this administration or out of the next administration?
Well, if we're talking about Trump's fellow G7 leaders, none of them want to be on the receiving end of U.S. tariffs either. Don't forget that steel tariffs, auto tariffs, the possibility of more U.S. action against Europe is something that's very real. So I think that you'll find European leaders being quiet on this. But I think Joe's point is really important. The value to the Trump campaign of continuing to be tough on China as we head into elections also bears fruit and is one of the few areas that's actually popular on a bipartisan level.